The spring winds blew in stronger than ever, sweeping away the precious peach blossoms. Kara stood in the middle of the orchard, her heart heavy, as she watched the flowers she cherished fall like the tears of spring. But in that moment of despair, a new determination rose within her. "We can't let this end like this," Kara shouted, her eyes full of resolve. "This orchard, this friendship, we won't give up." Spring had arrived gently, blowing through the forest, bringing with it the soft breath of nature. The warm breezes quietly wove through the green canopy, making the air feel fresher than ever. With each passing spring, the forest became more vibrant as everything around it began to awaken, as if nature itself was shedding its old skin to wear a new, lively coat. In this tranquil space, the orchard of peach blossoms stood modestly, yet full of life. The peach blossoms bloomed in abundance, like small pink dots scattered across the backdrop of green leaves, creating a romantic and refreshing scene. This spring, the peach flowers bloomed with a special beauty. Each delicate petal was as thin as silk, fluttering gently in the breeze, creating the perfect backdrop where every creature in the forest found joy and peace in their hearts. Kara, a small white rabbit with soft fur and clear-right eyes, was the first to visit the peach orchard every spring. She loved this orchard more than any other place in the forest. Each year, Kara would sit by the flowers, feeling the peace they brought. She would listen to the birds singing joyfully and watch the butterflies flutter by like living petals, carrying the new life of spring. Today, Kara arrived at the peach orchard as usual. But this time, she felt that something was different. Although the blossoms were still blooming, they appeared less vibrant than usual. The petals seeming more fragile, easily falling with the lightest breeze. A sense of worry rose in Kara's heart. She sat next to a peach tree, her gaze fixed on the petals fluttering in the wind. "This spring feels off," Kara murmured to herself. The peach trees are usually so strong and beautiful, but today they look different. Kara couldn't explain the unease growing within her. She remembered the previous springs when the orchard always bloomed brightly, full of life. But this year, it seemed that something had changed. For the first time in her life, Kara felt afraid that this orchard might lose its beauty. And if that happened, the forest would no longer be the place she loved. A sense of helplessness washed over Kara. She looked up at the sky, where the white clouds drifted lazily by, as if completely indifferent to her concerns. But in Kara's heart, there was a strong belief that if she could find out why the peach blossoms weren't blooming as they should, she would find a way to save the orchard. "No, I can't let this orchard fade away. It's all I have in this forest," Kara thought to herself, her eyes filled with determination. I have to do something, no matter what. The spring breezes continued to blow through the orchard. But this time, Kara didn't just sit idly by. She knew that if she wanted to protect the peach orchard, she had to learn more and act now. She turned around and ran towards her friends in the forest, the ones she knew would always be there to help. Luca, Oscar, and Penny, Kara's closest friends, would be the first ones she would go to share her worries. And so the journey to save the peach orchard began. This spring, Kara would not let her orchard be reduced to fragile petals in the wind. She would find a way to bring it back to life, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The next morning, Kara woke up with a sense of urgency that had never been there before. The previous day's worry still lingered in her heart like a shadow, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The orchard, which should have been a sanctuary of spring's vibrancy, felt fragile, as if the delicate beauty of the peach blossoms was hanging by a thread. With her heart full of determination, Kara decided that she couldn't simply sit back and watch the orchard fade away. She had to find out what was causing the strange change in the flowers and what she could do to save them. There was no time to waste. Her first stop was the forest clearing, where she knew she would find Oscar, the clever squirrel, with a shiny, bushy tail. Oscar was always one for thinking outside the box, and Kara trusted him more than anyone else when it came to solving problems. Oscar was perched on his favorite tree branch, nibbling on a pine nut when Kara arrived. She quickly explained her concerns about the orchard and the peach blossoms. Oscar listened carefully, his bushy tail twitching as he processed the information. That's strange, Oscar said thoughtfully, looking toward the distant hills where the winds often came from. You're right, Kara. The blossoms seem weak this year. It's as if the wind is draining their strength. I've noticed it too. The gusts this spring have been unusually harsh. It's possible that they're affecting the flowers more than usual. Kara nodded, her worry deepening. So, you think the wind is to blame? I think it's a big part of it, Oscar replied. But it could be something else as well. Let's check it out together. Together, they ventured deeper into the forest, seeking out Penny, the small blue bird with feathers as bright as the spring sky. Penny was known for her keen sense of observation and her ability to detect even the faintest changes in the weather or the environment. Penny was perched on a branch near the heart of the forest, singing softly to herself. When Kara and Oscar approached, Penny immediately stopped singing and fluttered down to meet them. What's wrong, Kara? Penny asked, her voice soft but concerned. Kara quickly told her what they had discovered about the peach orchard and the strange changes in the blossoms. Penny tilted her head, listening carefully. After a moment of silence, she spoke. "You're not imagining it," Kara, Penny said. "I've noticed something strange, too. The winds this season have been harsher than ever before, and I've seen many of the flowers in the forest struggling to bloom properly. It's as if the spring breezes are too strong, and they're wearing everything down." Kara's heart sank. "But what can we do? How can we stop the wind from destroying the orchard?" Penny fluttered her wings thoughtfully, and Oscar's tail twitched as he began to form a plan. "Well, we can't stop the wind, but we can find a way to protect the orchard," Penny said. "If we build a barrier, something that can shield the flowers from the harsh gusts, it might give them the strength they need to survive." Oscar nodded, his eyes bright with excitement. "That's a great idea, Penny. We could use the tree's vines and branches to create a natural wall around the orchard. It might not stop all the wind, but it will definitely lessen the impact." Kara's eyes lit up with hope. "That's it. We'll build a protective barrier. Thank you both so much." The three friends, united by a common purpose, began to make plans. They spent the rest of the day gathering materials: strong branches, thick vines, and large leaves that could be woven together. With each task they completed, Kara's hope grew stronger. She could see the orchard's future once again, filled with blooming peach blossoms and the sweet fragrance of spring. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden light over the forest, Kara stood in the center of the clearing, looking at her two friends. "We're going to do this. We'll save the orchard, and it will bloom again, just like before." Oscar and Penny smiled at her, their faces full of determination. Together, they would protect the orchard and the beauty of spring. The next morning, Kara, Oscar, and Penny set out to implement their plan. The sky was clear, the sun shining brightly as spring's warmth wrapped around them like a soft blanket. Yet despite the peaceful day, an unspoken tension hung in the air. The forest was still, but everyone knew that the winds were coming harsh, unrelenting, and ready to test their determination. "Let's get to work," Kara said, her voice filled with resolve. She glanced at her friends, Oscar and Penny, who were already gathering their materials to build the barrier. The air was calm for now, but they all knew it wouldn't last. The wind began to pick up in the late afternoon, just as they were placing the last of the tree branches around the orchard. First, it was just a gentle breeze rustling the leaves above them. But before long, the winds grew stronger, whistling through the trees and shaking the branches. Kara stood back, watching as the barrier began to take shape. The wall they had built out of branches, vines, and thick leaves was already providing some protection, but it wasn't enough. The wind howled, sending sharp gusts that threatened to tear down the work they had done. Kara felt a knot form in her stomach. The wind, it's stronger than I expected, Kara said, her voice barely audible over the roar of the wind. We need to finish it fast. Oscar, his small form darting between the trees, called out, Don't worry, Kara. We just need to reinforce it more. Penny, let's use those large vines over there to make the barrier stronger. Penny fluttered her wings and soared to the spot Oscar had pointed out. She worked quickly, using her nimble beak to tie the vines securely around the branches. The two friends worked side by side, adding layers of protection, weaving the vines into a dense wall that would hopefully shield the orchard from the worst of the winds. Kara, meanwhile, stayed close to the orchard, checking the peach trees one by one. The petals, delicate as they were, had begun to fall in the wind, scattered like confetti in the air. Kara felt her heart break with each petal that drifted away, carried off by the wind. She couldn't bear to see her beloved orchard suffer, but she knew they had to press on. Don't give up, she whispered to herself, her determination building. The orchard isn't lost yet. We can protect it. As the winds grew fiercer, the barrier began to take shape. The thicker vines formed a protective wall, and the sturdy branches began to block most of the wind. Still, the gusts were relentless, and the pressure seemed unyielding. Kara looked around. The other animals of the forest were beginning to take notice of the storm. Squirrels and birds who had been gathering food for the season now huddled together near the trees, watching the battle between nature and the barrier. Hold on, we're almost there, Oscar called out, his voice filled with energy despite the storm. Together, they continued to work, reinforcing the barrier as the winds screamed around them. Kara watched as Penny worked tirelessly, her small wings flapping against the wind, tying down each vine with precision. Every time they added a new layer of defense, the winds seemed to push harder, as if testing their resolve. The sun was beginning to set, casting an orange glow over the forest, but the storm was far from over. The gusts seemed to be at their peak now, and Kara could feel the pressure mounting. The barrier, though sturdy, wasn't perfect, and she feared it wouldn't hold for much longer. Just as Kara was about to suggest that they take a break and regroup, a loud snap echoed through the air, the sound of a branch breaking under the force of the wind. Kara's heart skipped a beat. No, Kara cried, rushing forward. But before she could get to the orchard, Oscar and Penny were already there. They had seen it too, and with quick reflexes, they worked together to fix the broken barrier, reinforcing it with a new layer of branches and vines. Penny fluttered in and out, tying everything back into place, while Oscar used his sharp claws to weave more twigs into the structure. Kara stood by the orchard, watching them work. Despite the wind's strength, despite the obstacles in their way, her friends never stopped. They were determined to protect the orchard, no matter the cost. And then, just as the last of the sunlight dipped below the horizon, the winds began to die down. The gusts slowed to a gentle breeze, and the storm that had threatened the orchard seemed to ease away. The barrier stood tall and firm, shielding the trees from the worst of the wind. Kara breathed a sigh of relief, her body relaxing as the tension melted away. The orchard was safe for now. Oscar wiped his brow, smiling at Kara. "It's done, Kara. The orchard's protected." Kara looked at the peach blossoms, now swaying gently in the breeze. They were still delicate, but they were alive. They were safe. "Thank you," Kara said, her voice full of gratitude. "We did it. Together." Penny fluttered down next to Kara, her wings still buzzing from the effort. "It's not over yet," she said, smiling. "But we've done what we can for today. Now we wait." Kara nodded, her eyes fixed on the orchard. The peach blossoms, though tired from the storm, still held their beauty. And in that moment, Kara realized that just like the orchard, she too had learned something valuable. It wasn't about stopping the storm. It was about facing it with strength, with hope, and with the love of those around you. And so they stood together, watching the last of the wind fade away, knowing that they had done everything they could to protect the beauty of the orchard. The next few days brought a calm, like the world was catching its breath after the storm. The winds had died down, but the challenge wasn't over. Kara, Oscar, and Penny knew that while they had created a protective barrier, the orchard still needed their care. The peach blossoms had survived the worst of the storm, but now it was time to nurture them back to their fullest potential. Kara stood by the orchard early one morning, looking out over the stillness. The sky was painted in soft hues of pink and gold as the sun slowly rose, casting its gentle light over the forest. For a brief moment, everything seemed peaceful. The trees stood tall, their branches heavy with blossoms that gently swayed in the breeze. Yet Kara's heart still carried the weight of concern. The damage wasn't gone. The petals that had fallen were still scattered, like pieces of a fragile dream. As she walked toward the orchard, she saw Oscar and Penny already hard at work. Oscar, ever the busy squirrel, was hopping between branches, carefully checking the leaves for any signs of damage. Penny, with her wings flitting gracefully, was tending to the flowers, inspecting each one with the same care a mother might give to her child. "I'm so glad to see you both here," Kara said softly, her voice carrying the warmth of her gratitude. "We're all in this together," Oscar replied, his eyes bright with determination. "The barrier helped a lot, but we have to keep an eye on the flowers. These blossoms are strong, but they're still fragile." Penny chirped in agreement. "Exactly. The winds may have subsided, but the flowers need extra care. We'll have to water them, keep them safe, and make sure the soil stays rich with nutrients. Kara nodded. The unity she felt with her friends gave her strength. She realized that it wasn't just about fighting against nature's forces. It was about working together, relying on each other's strengths, and never giving up on the things they loved. For the next few hours, the three of them worked tirelessly, tending to the peach trees. Kara carefully watered each tree, making sure the soil was rich and moist. Penny fluttered around, spreading soft petals to protect the new blooms from any harsh sunlight, while Oscar gathered fresh leaves and small branches to help shield the flowers from any sudden gusts. Together, they poured their hearts into the orchard, each small act a testament to their love for the land and the beauty it held. As they worked, they spoke in soft voices, sharing memories of the past and dreams of the future. Oscar told stories of the times when the winds used to blow softly across the forest, making the leaves dance in harmony. Penny shared tales of the first time she had flown through the forest, feeling the wind beneath her wings, and how she had once seen a rainbow form after a spring shower. Kara smiled as she listened, her heart full of warmth. She knew that this was what made their bond so special, being able to share these small moments together, even in the face of adversity. When they had finished for the day, the orchard looked better than it had in days. The protective barrier still stood strong, and the blossoms now seemed to glow with renewed energy. Kara stood in the middle of the orchard, surrounded by her friends, and looked out over the trees with a deep sense of accomplishment. "Look at them," Kara said softly. "They're strong again." Oscar nodded. "They'll be okay. We've done our part, but we still have to keep an eye on them," Penny chirped, fluttering to Kara's side. "The wind may come again, but I believe in this orchard, and I believe in us." Kara smiled, feeling a rush of gratitude. "We've shown that together we can protect the things that matter most. And this orchard is worth every ounce of our effort." As the day came to a close, the forest around them seemed to exhale, the world bathed in the soft, golden glow of the setting sun. The peach orchard, though still fragile, had come back to life. It stood as a symbol of their hard work, their love, and their unwavering commitment to protecting the beauty of the world around them. Kara looked at Oscar and Penny, her heart full of gratitude. "Thank you, both," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "For everything. I couldn't have done it without you." Oscar flashed a grin. "What are friends for, right?" Penny nodded, her eyes sparkling with affection. "We're in this together, Kara." "Always." And so the trio stood together, watching the orchard sway gently in the evening breeze, knowing that their work wasn't over. They still had a long way to go to ensure the orchard's survival, but with each passing day, they were one step closer to seeing it thrive again. The future, though, uncertain, held hope. And with that hope, they knew they could face anything. As the days passed, Kara's heart began to lighten. The winds had settled, and the orchard, once fragile, now seemed to stand stronger than ever. The blossoms had regained some of their color, and the delicate petals swayed gently in the breeze, not as weak as they once had been, but resilient in their quiet beauty. It was clear now that the battle to save the orchard had not been in vain. Kara, Oscar, and Penny continued their daily work, caring for the trees and ensuring that the protective barrier they had built remained strong. But more than that, they began to feel the magic of the orchard return, like the promise of spring itself, of renewal, of growth, of second chances. One afternoon, Kara found herself standing in the middle of the orchard, watching the petals dance in the air as a soft breeze swept through. There was something about the scene that made her heart swell with emotion. The flowers were alive again, but it wasn't just the orchard that had come back to life. It was her as well. She had watched the blossoms weather the storm, seen them stand tall in the face of adversity. And it reminded her of something important. The strength of the orchard was like a reflection of her own. The challenges she had faced, both in the orchard and in life, had been overwhelming, but she had fought through them. She had worked with her friends, never giving up, and now she could see the results of their hard work. It was a lesson, one that Kara would carry with her always, no matter the storms, no matter the trials. If you stay true to what you love and put in the effort, hope can always bloom again. Penny, Oscar. Kara called, her voice full of warmth and gratitude. Come look at this. The two friends quickly joined her in the orchard. Oscar, ever the curious squirrel, scampered over his eyes, sparkling with excitement. Penny fluttered gently down beside Kara, her wings shining in the sunlight. What is it? Kara Oscar asked eagerly. Kara smiled, pointing to the peach trees that were now fully in bloom. Look at them, she said, her voice full of awe. They're beautiful again. The orchard has come back to life, just like we hoped. Penny's eyes lit up as she gazed at the flowers. It's incredible, she said softly. They've blossomed, just like we knew they would. All our hard work paid off. Oscar nodded, his tail twitching with excitement. We did it. We saved the orchard. Kara's heart swelled with pride as she looked at her two friends. They had done it. Together, they had overcome every obstacle, every challenge, and now the orchard was alive once more. It was more than just the flowers blooming. It was the embodiment of their perseverance, their love and their commitment to one another. But Kara knew that their journey wasn't over. There would always be challenges in life, new winds to face, new storms to weather. The orchard, like life itself, would never be without difficulty. But as long as they had each other, there was nothing they couldn't face. "Thank you, both of you," Kara said, her voice full of emotion. "I couldn't have done this without you." Oscar grinned, his eyes twinkling. "We're a team, Kara. That's what friends are for." Penny nodded, her voice soft but full of conviction. "We've proven that when we work together, we can accomplish anything." The three of them stood together side by side in the heart of the orchard. The air was still, the sun setting behind them, casting a golden glow across the trees. The peach blossoms swayed gently in the breeze, their colors more vibrant than Kara had ever seen them. It was a sight of peace, of hope, and of new beginnings. "I believe this orchard will thrive for many years to come," Kara said softly, her voice filled with a quiet certainty. "And so will we, together." Oscar and Penny nodded, their hearts as full as Kara's. The orchard, now strong and vibrant, was a symbol of their friendship, their dedication, and their unwavering belief in each other. No matter what came next, they knew they would always have the strength to face it, just as they had with the orchard. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Kara, Oscar, and Penny stood together in the orchard, watching the peach blossoms sway in the breeze. Their work had paid off, and the beauty of spring had been restored. And as the night fell, Kara knew that no storm, no matter how fierce, could ever take away the light of hope that now bloomed in her heart, just like the peach blossoms in the orchard. As the days passed, the orchard blossomed further, its beauty a reminder of the strength that came from love and unity. Kara, Oscar, and Penny had worked tirelessly to protect and nurture the orchard, but they had also discovered something deeper along the way, something about themselves, about the world around them, and about the power of community. The wind that had once seemed like a force of destruction now appeared as just a part of the natural rhythm of the world. The storm had passed, and the orchard had survived, not just because of the barrier they had built, but because of the care, patience, and hope they had poured into it. And as the flowers bloomed brighter than before, the three friends stood in the midst of the orchard, humbled by the journey they had taken together. Kara looked around at the lush green trees, their branches weighed down by the fruit of their labor, the peach blossoms still vibrant and alive. Every petal, every leaf seemed to hum with energy, a song of gratitude for the hands that had cared for them. It wasn't just the orchard that had grown, but their hearts as well. Their bonds had deepened, and their understanding of what it meant to protect and cherish something they loved had expanded. "We've done something beautiful here," Kara whispered, almost to herself. Her voice was full of awe and wonder. The wind carried her words like a soft breath across the orchard. Oscar, Ever, the enthusiastic squirrel, sat perched on a nearby branch, his bright eyes twinkling with pride. "Yeah, we really did. But don't forget, Kara, this isn't just about the orchard. It's about what we've learned. We've learned to face the storms, to work together, and to never give up, no matter how strong the winds may get." Penny, who had been silent for a moment, perched on a nearby twig, her wings still as she gazed at the blossoming trees. "It's true," she said, her voice soft but sure. "What we've done is more than just protect a few flowers. We've proven that love, care, and hope can overcome anything. We've seen that with the orchard, and now we know that we can carry that lesson with us wherever we go." Kara smiled, a warmth filling her chest. Penny's words resonated deeply within her. The journey wasn't just about the orchard. It was about how their hearts had grown, how they had each discovered the true meaning of care, sacrifice, and unity. It was about seeing beauty in the face of struggle and recognizing that even in the toughest times, something precious could still emerge. "We've become part of something bigger," Kara said, her voice full of emotion. "The orchard is alive, yes, but so are we. Our connection to this place, to each other, is what's made it thrive. And that's what will keep it going." As they stood in the orchard, surrounded by the fruits of their hard work, Kara couldn't help but feel that the orchard had become a symbol of their friendship, their love for the natural world, and their resilience. It was a place where life began anew each spring, and it was a place where they would return year after year to see how the love they had given would continue to grow. Oscar hopped down from the branch, landing gracefully beside Kara. "I think we've learned something really important," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "The world will always throw challenges our way, but if we work together and believe in what we're doing, we can overcome anything." Kara nodded, her heart light. "I know we can. And this orchard will always remind us of that." Penny fluttered down from her perch and landed softly beside Kara. "It's not just the orchard, though. We've learned how to face the storms in our lives, how to come together in times of need, and how to never lose hope." The three of them stood together, the evening breeze gently ruffling their fur and feathers, as the golden light of the setting sun bathed the orchard in a soft, warm glow. It was a moment of peace, a moment of knowing that they had done something truly special. "I'm proud of us," Kara said, her voice barely more than a whisper, yet filled with a deep sense of gratitude. "We've done something beautiful, something meaningful. And it's only just the beginning. Oscar and Penny nodded, their eyes shining with the same understanding. They had faced the winds together, and they had emerged stronger. They had saved the orchard, but in doing so, they had saved something even more important, their own sense of hope, unity, and love. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting its final rays over the orchard, the three friends stood together in quiet reflection. The orchard was no longer just a place, it had become a part of them, a living testament to the power of their bond. And as the stars began to twinkle in the sky above, Kara knew that no matter what challenges the future might bring, they would always have each other, and the love they had shared for this beautiful orchard to carry them through. The days that followed were filled with a quiet joy. The orchard had not only survived, but flourished more beautiful and vibrant than Kara had ever imagined. The peach trees stood tall and proud, their branches heavy with blossoms, as if showing their gratitude for the care they had received. It was a peaceful time where Kara, Oscar, and Penny could stand in the heart of the orchard and bask in the sense of accomplishment that filled the air. But as much as Kara loved the orchard, she knew that the journey they had taken together had taught her something much deeper than simply how to protect the trees. It had shown her the power of love, of connection, and of the resilience of the spirit. Kara was sitting beneath one of the peach trees, feeling the soft warmth of the sun on her fur, when Oscar and Penny came to join her. The breeze had calmed, and the orchard was alive with the gentle hum of nature. The sound of bees buzzing between the flowers, the rustle of leaves as birds fluttered above, and the occasional soft chirp from a distant creature all seemed to fill the air with a peaceful rhythm. "You know," Kara said, her voice filled with reflection, "this orchard isn't just a symbol of the work we've done. It's a symbol of what we've learned about ourselves, too." "Oscar, ever?" The eager one grinned and sat down beside her. "I've learned a lot, mostly about how we work together to solve problems. I mean, look at this place. It's thriving now, and it's because we never gave up." Penny, with a thoughtful expression, perched on a nearby branch, her wings fluttering gently. "And I've learned that strength isn't just about how much we can endure alone. It's about the way we come together, the way we rely on each other. This orchard wouldn't be here if we hadn't supported one another every step of the way." Kara smiled, feeling a deep warmth in her chest. "Exactly. This orchard is a reflection of everything we've been through, our perseverance, our teamwork, and most importantly, our love for this place. We didn't just protect the orchard, we've nurtured it, just like how we've nurtured our friendship." Oscar nodded, looking out over the orchard. "I think it's more than that. It's about trust, too. We trusted each other with something precious. And look where we are now, Penny chirped in agreement, her voice soft but filled with conviction. When you trust someone, you're not just relying on them, you're investing in something bigger than yourself. We've invested in this orchard, and we've invested in each other. Kara felt the truth of those words sink deep into her heart. This journey had been more than just saving the orchard. It had been about discovering what it meant to trust, to work together, and to find strength in love. They had all become part of something greater, something that would last far beyond the seasons of this orchard. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the orchard, Kara, Oscar, and Penny stood together in silence. The wind had calmed completely, and the soft rustling of the leaves was the only sound that filled the air. The world seemed to slow down as the light faded, leaving behind a sense of peace that only the natural world could offer. We've made something beautiful. Kara whispered, her voice thick with emotion. And we've done it together. Oscar smiled and nudged her gently. We sure did. Penny fluttered down and landed next to them, her eyes gleaming with happiness. And I believe this orchard will continue to thrive year after year, not just because of the care we gave it, but because of the love that was poured into it. Kara looked at her two friends, her heart full. She had started this journey with a sense of worry and fear, but now she stood here, surrounded by the beauty of the orchard, knowing that love had always been the answer. The love for the trees, the love for the land, and the love for each other had been the foundation of everything they had done. This orchard will always remind me of us, Kara said softly, of how we fought for something we cared about, of how we didn't give up no matter what, and we won't give up. Oscar said, his voice filled with certainty. We'll keep working together, and we'll keep protecting the things we love. Penny nodded, her wings fluttering gently in the evening breeze. Because that's what matters. Love, teamwork, and never giving up. As the first stars began to twinkle in the sky, Kara felt a deep sense of contentment. The orchard would continue to grow and bloom year after year, a testament to their hard work and the bond they shared. But it was more than that. It was a living reminder of everything they had learned, everything they had overcome, and everything they had built together. And no matter what storms the future might bring, Kara knew that as long as they were together, they could face anything. The winds may have come and gone, but the orchard stands strong, just like the friendship that saved it. Kara and her friends learned that no storm, no matter how fierce, can tear apart the bonds built on trust, love, and hope. The blossoms are still blooming, a living testament to their courage, resilience, and the beauty that can rise from the toughest of trials.